Welcome. It's Saturday night to Paul Booth's Movie Cast. It's August 16th. It's about 9 p.m. I figured I'd throw in some weekend movie talk, even though every day is movie day, especially for you film buffs and film fans, filmmakers. The reason why you're listening to this is you must love movies. Thank you so much for the support of the people that have checked out the first podcast that I sent out, and the Facebook friends who have been paying attention and responding. It is appreciated. These videos are for everyone. They're not just for me to hear myself talk, so I appreciate it. I decided to just randomly grab 4 movies off my DVD shelf and talk about a couple of books that I talked about in some other podcasts that I haven't published yet. But we'll talk about them here again today since we haven't talked about them publicly. First of all, for feedback, recommendations, anything, you can email me at paulboothmovies@gmail.com. That's paulboothmovies@gmail.com. I definitely want this to be an interactive experience, and you can recommend a movie maybe that you'd like me to review or talk about, or mention you and your thoughts. If you send me an email, I can maybe read the email, but we'll figure that out later. Now let's get started and jump into one of my favorite movies from the great director Gus Van Sant, who is known for Drugstore Cowboy and Elephant, a lot of art house films, but Good Will Hunting and Finding Forrester are his commercial films. Of course, Good Will Hunting is his biggest hit. He did do a remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which many filmmakers and film fans were frustrated with, but you can't win them all. So this one is Milk. This was from 2008, and in 2009 at the ceremony, Sean Penn picked up the Best Actor award. This was an incredible movie. This movie really changed my life. I never had any judgments against gay, heterosexual, whatever we call it, or are allowed to call it in this overly politically correct country, because I just like using the word humanity. In every podcast show that I do, you will hear that word. It is my favorite word, humanity. Sean Penn was so good in this. A friend of mine who actually met Harvey Milk on many occasions said, sitting in his seat, he felt like Harvey Milk had returned from the dead. Of course, we had a great performance from Josh Brolin, and Emile Hirsch has Cleve Jones, the guy who started the AIDS Memorial Quilt, and Emile Hirsch would go on to star in Sean Penn's Into the Wild, which I highly recommend. On all these shows, I want to make sure that you get something out of the movie we're talking about, and then you also get some recommendations to take with you if you like an actor or a director. So with this, I'm going to leave you with, it's based on a true story. The first openly gay official elected to public office. He served 1 year, and then, I don't want to spoil the ending, but you guys probably know the ending because it's a true story. But Josh Brolin, the arrival of him, a lot of people loved him in No Country for Old Men. Check him out in Wall Street 2. He had just an insane year after doing Milk and No Country for Old Men. And for Gus Van Sant, if you can find it, it's very hard to find, watch Drugstore Cowboy with Matt Dillon, and for all you guys out there, a very young, very beautiful Heather Graham. The next movie, I know that no one out there is going to say that they haven't seen this, but this is The Shining. And what I want to say about this is a 2-disc special edition that I found, and it has some new documentaries, but it also has a commentary by the Steadicam inventor operator Garrett Brown. The Steadicam, of course, as you know, is the way we see all those wonderful, perfectly moving, tracking shots into the camera. Boogie Nights has made it so famous to younger generations and people that are less into film. But it is used best by Martin Scorsese. Spike Lee has been very inventive with it. But those shots of the kid riding the bicycle around to have a camera attached to that was just amazing. Of course, this is a scary movie, a horror movie. I think I did meet someone the other day. Again, I'm going to drink water. This is, to me, these shows are like you're in my home. We're just talking movies at a coffee table, so it's not formal. Is that she said she hadn't seen The Shining only because she was afraid of horror movies, which I respected. But I told her for cinematography reasons, because she's a cinematography student, that she had to see this movie. There's some very famous scenes of Jack Nicholson. It's a great concept, of course, based on a Stephen King book. I highly recommend the 2-disc special edition because of the documentaries and because, hey, to filmmakers, film historians, film buffs, we always got to go for the special edition. I think single disc should be banned, if you ask me. But The Shining, recommended. Even if you've seen it, go watch it again. Another movie here, since we had talked about No Country for Old Men, Javier Bardem had won the Oscar for playing the villain in that. The same year, this movie, There Will Be Blood, with Daniel Day-Lewis, he picked up his second of now 3 Oscars that he has for playing Daniel Plainview. This was a really subversive work of art from Paul Thomas Anderson, who's best known to wide audiences for Boogie Nights, but is most known to filmmakers for, of course, Boogie Nights, but Magnolia, and his quirky art house film Punch Drunk Love, which finally broke Adam Sandler out of playing the same Happy Gilmore character in every film. But There Will Be Blood is this epic movie about oil and greed, and Daniel Day-Lewis cons people out of land, and it's really interesting because it's about a father and son, and I'm not going to be political here, but I'm going to say it's about a father and son who screw people out of money, and it involves the oil business. And this movie came out at the peak of the ending of the Bush administration, and I just thought it was genius writing. So many people I've talked to say they didn't catch that, but any great director who's an iconoclast like Paul Thomas Anderson is going to be able to jump in there and give you that extra message. And I'm sorry, but it's well documented. You know, I won't even go into all the scandals, but watch this movie. You know, it's just a great work of art. It picked up the Best Cinematography Oscar, and there's just some ingenious stuff in here. Again, There Will Be Blood. Check it out. Find it however you can. One of my favorite movies that I seldom hear people discuss, and I've met very few people that actually saw it, because this was at a really, I guess, timid time for the country, of course, but 25th Hour, Spike Lee, starring Ed Norton. This is, the cinematographer was Rodrigo Prieto, who has filmed 21 Grams, Babel, Brokeback Mountain, Wolf of Wall Street. But this was the first movie to be filmed in New York City after 9/11. So there is scenes of the actual site, you know, in its demolished state. And it was, I just don't know if audiences were ready to spend an entire 2 hours in New York City. But this film had to be made. Of course, Spike had to be the one to do it. He's never one to steer away from controversy or stirring the pot. And he tells real stories and American stories. And whether you like Spike or not, you got to respect that he has the guts to do things. So again, I want you to get a look at this. It's about a guy who has it's about the last day that he's spending with his friends before he goes off to prison for dealing drugs. And I think it's his best work. I would love to find someone to debate how this is better than Do the Right Thing. The scope of Malcolm X and Denzel's performance is the only thing of why I can't say this is better than X. Maybe Do the Right Thing, what it was at the time, and the way it made us face racism when we were engulfed in our greed fest of the 80s, is probably the only way that this would lose a debate over what was better. But 25th Hour, you like Spike Lee or Ed Norton or Barry Pepper, And of course, I also bring this up to honor the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman, who we lost this year. So, 25th Hour, put that on your list. Last thing I'm going to do, instead of 2 books, I'm just going to mention one. The Sundance Kids, most libraries. The last 3 places I've lived, the libraries have had it, so it's a popular book. As you can see, you get to read about Lost in Translation, Pulp Fiction, Election, Fight Club, David O. Russell, I Heart Huckabees, Reservoir Dogs, Usual Suspects, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You get to read about Kimberly Pierce and Sofia Coppola. On the back here, if you notice, you get Traffic, Royal Tenenbaums, Adaptation, Sideways. Sorry, learning the camera here a bit. Boogie Nights, and Seven. So you basically get David Fincher, Alexander Payne, Paul Thomas Anderson, Steven Soderbergh, Wes Anderson, Spike Jonze, Sofia Coppola, Quentin Tarantino, David O. Russell, Bryan Singer, the ins and outs of their career, how it came about, where it went. I highly recommend this book. If you're into film history books, you also got to read Rebels on the Backlot, Down and Dirty Pictures, and I suggest actually going back before that and maybe reading Easy Riders, Raging Bulls to kind of give you a context of all the films that inspired these guys, because these guys just did nothing but basically make 70s movies in the late 90s, first couple of years of the 2000s, and that's the great part of film, is that it's passed on, and none of these guys created a thing that we think they created, and the guys in the 70s copied directors in the 50s. So thank you for joining me. This show is going to be about history, Oscars, trivia. All I want to do is just share my knowledge and talk movies, and hope I give you guys something to enjoy. Tell your friends about it, and again, the email is paulboothmovies@gmail.com. Email me anytime. I would love to talk movies or involve you somehow in these shows. Thank you for your time, and have a great weekend.